This episode contains sensitive content. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Culture Podcast, where we uncover the hidden mechanics of high control groups, their tactics, and their impact. And we speak with the survivors who broke free. My name is Derek, and I'm your host.
My name is Trinity, and I'm also your host. On this podcast, we explore cult life as real people who have lived through the life-changing process of leaving a high control group.
Let's get into it. I'm really happy to have Trent on, of course.
Hello.
But also our guest, Dustin. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It is an honor to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, thank you for being here. It really means a lot. Dustin and I go way back. We were discussing before the podcast started recording that he was one of the last persons I kind of had dinner with before I decided to leave. And so it's really interesting here. I thought I'd lost a good friend. And it's really interesting here that we've now reconnected years later.
Yeah.
Which is similar to me and Derek's story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's threads.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you leave, you have to come to terms with the thought and feeling that you may never speak to good friends again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird because it's like in all intents and purposes, we're good friends. We're great friends. We have similar interests. We enjoy each other's company. We enjoy each other's humor and different things. And then in a moment, you just go like, oh, it's over.
Right.
Yep.
And, I remember sending you a message saying goodbye, and you were still in years ago in 2021. And you were just like, well, okay, well, I miss you and, take care.
Yeah.
And I guess walk me through your thoughts. Do you remember years ago, just how you felt when you got that message from me?
Oh, I clearly remember. Yeah. And in fact, just before that dinner too, not that I could tell something was off. I could just tell you were somewhere else, especially with our friend Ryan and his wife, it being over. I mean, they're very self-righteous, which you find quite often through the JWs. But it just every, all their opinions very, JW sided and things. And I've always kind of been a little bit loose, but I remember, you being there and that happening and Ryan talking about elders or something. And then Christy actually asking you like, hey, do you know who your elders are? And you're like, I don't know, you seemed like a couple. And you're like, I don't know the rest. And I remember like after you left, she goes, I don't think he's doing very well in the truth because he doesn't know his elders' names. And I'm like, what? So I remember that because that was kind of funny. And then, and then when I got that text from you, I was really bummed because I was just like, shit, man, that's like the last cool person I know.
Yeah.
That because everybody else, I don't know, I just never really jived with.
Yeah.
I've always been on the fringe of the witness world, but
That's so funny because that's not the first time I've heard that either, of just like, man, all my cool friends are gone. Like,
yeah,
they're leaving in droves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you start to see, especially the farther you get away from it, you do start to see people that are like very witnessy, very in.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Unshakably so.
They have all the zeal, as Gork, said. They have, they're so spiritual, almost self-righteous. And then you have people that are always kind of like, well, I'm in, I'm doing what's necessary, but
I'm listening to rap music in my car sometimes.
But I want to watch, rated R movies. I want to, go see shows and concerts. I remember talking with people and telling them like, oh, I went to a dive bar, last week and had a great time and went dancing. And they were just like, what?
Yeah.
And there's kind of different levels to witnesses. There's
100%. I mean, there was levels that I didn't really know existed at the time. I mean, as far as, I don't know, I guess we can go into that later. But yeah, because when the International Assembly came to town, I had the wonderful, what they would call the privilege, which has destroyed that word anytime I hear it now. The wonderful privilege of helping the busing system of loading and unloading people. And I remember telling people when I was doing that, I said, "You couldn't pay me enough to ever do this, ever." And I said, "I don't care if this is for the assembly or not." I said, "This sucks,"
Yeah.
and people just looking at you like with this face.
Yeah, I think you definitely start to realize that there's layers to people's inness. I don't remember the name of that district convention, but I do remember it was 2019,
I think it was God is Love. Was it that one? Maybe.
and it. Are you talking about the international convention?
Yeah, yeah, the international.
Where was it at?
There at the baseball stadium, Chase,
And it would oh, okay, Chase.
which was Chase Field at that time. I don't know if it's still Chase Field, but
See, I attended one of those in Texas, in a big international convention at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. I didn't volunteer or anything, but it's just interesting. I went to one of those too.
yeah, yeah, it was one of those things. I think nobody wanted to volunteer for it, so I was kind of picked.
Yeah.
There's a story in itself, which when we have you back on, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more. But that 2019 convention, I was already waking up. And so I had quite the experience with that international convention.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's wild to think back about where I was then, even a few short years ago, and where I'm at now. But yeah, for people that don't have context, a normal convention or assembly is anywhere from 2,500, 5,000 to 10,000 people. But an international convention is like 50,000 people,
Yeah, like full stadium capacity.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah,
full stadium, and they cart people out there from.
The biggest stadiums they can find, maximized.
Yeah, well, they want to really show off. We have people from Africa, and we have people from Thailand, and we have all these international delegates that are coming in who are preaching in all these foreign
And
lands,
it
and
is impressive.
it's really just kind of designed to show you the scale
Yeah.
of the organization. But you just don't really realize everyone's really putting on a good face.
The best face, dude, and it's awesome. And I really miss the breakfast food at the hotels, dude. And the pool sessions afterward.
absolutely right. Yeah,
Well, and it's like other things we've talked about. There's always some good and some bad,
Yep.
for every one of these things. There's always great memories of these old assemblies and conventions we went to growing up. But then with reflection, you always kind of learn, oh, there was a lot of bad stuff about
Yeah.
this that they hid from us or made us do, or it's such a privilege to clean the toilets, and to do parking in 120-degree heat.
I've been in groups who don't see service like that as so dramatic, and that kind of ruins it. AA is a group where you're very service oriented, but then also like we don't say it's a privilege. It's okay to gripe about it. It's a bunch of humans organized to do menial work that needs done, and that's just called exactly that.
yeah.
And then they say don't professionally organize or get too crazy with this. Like keep it loose, keep it human.
Hmm.
And so if you've never been to an AA meeting, I've been telling everyone it's worth going because you just learn little things like that, and then you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Then you just realize like what you already knew, Dustin. Like, man, this sucks. I just have to do it. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A lot of life is like that growing up. At least it was for me.
But here's what I'll say for those who are listening who may not know you, can you kind of introduce yourself in your own words, and kind of who are you now, and kind of who were you kind of growing up as a witness?
Yeah, yeah. Who I am now. Wow, it's a blank slate. In a way. I mean, to use that analogy as a blank slate. I'm working off that slate right now. That's the only thing I have. That's my foundation at the moment. In trying to kind of just place certain things, I kind of, I don't, I don't know if it's too extreme, but to me, I'm kind of like an all or nothing guy. I've always been that way. I try to shut it off, but it just doesn't happen. So I kind of, have just jumped into it and rid myself of everything and said, okay, from here on out, I'm going to have to prove myself, be subjective and objective about everything in my life now. Quit taking everybody's word, for what it is.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, but that ebbs and flows, throughout the weeks, because it's been so early. There's a lot of emotions and feelings I have now that I didn't even know existed. You know,
Yeah. Well, I think there's part of all of us that we were just part of the motions of what we were taught to believe and feel and think and act. And you don't, you're like, how, what should I do? Well, it's like, well, ask the young people's answers book or whatever. Like, you you're constantly just go to this book. You
Uh-huh.
have a thought, a feeling, emotion, and you're like, go to this book for the answer. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's the way we're supposed to live and do and feel and act. And we've talked about it before. You have this thought process of like, well, maybe I want to do this other thing, and then you have this talk or this article that kind of shames you or guilts you, and then you kind of mentally get back in line.
Hmm.
And so, no doubt you're at a place now where you're like, well, fuck, I'm not getting these articles anymore. Now what? I'm
Right?
not getting
Yeah.
these talks anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you have this freedom where you're never going to get that readjustment moving forward. And I know personally it can be kind of a daunting place to be. I'm sure you feel the same, Trent.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I clearly remember the exact same thought. You have this moment of fracture where you're like, oh shit, everything that I've thought forever is off.
Yeah.
The calculation just got fucked, and I need to recalculate. And then for me, I tried for weeks and months and years to recalculate and just literally could not sum.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it to sum up.
Hmm.
And so then I started thinking, well, shit, now I need to rebuild a calculation from scratch, just like you said. And I need to basically re-look at everything that I've taken for granted my whole life and make objective, logical, and emotionally correct decisions
Hmm.
and outlooks and viewpoints. And then you start to realize where you can force that and where you can't. Like, you can force it in some ways and you can have like quick unorganic growth, but then in others, like family and certain things, like, you really can't force it, but you try. And so I don't know, I think that we all kind of end up on the same paths, and it's unspoken, and that's why we like talking about it,
Yeah.
because I remember thinking the exact damn same thing you did and pretty much went about my life the same way, and it's happened organically and inorganically.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I figure like I had to flush that out. I had to push that out in order to really allow myself to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, because all through life, just growing up, because like I said, I was always, very alternative. And I was that way, not even knowing it, until you're a teenager and you're like, oh shit, here's another group of guys that are kind of like me. I just thought I was always the odd guy out, or the guy who was a little too extreme, or,
Yep.
my conscience wasn't hard enough. But yeah, it's
So just to retract a little bit. So you were just publicly announced as no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses,
correct.
By your choice.
by your choice. Another way to frame that is disfellowshipped or excommunicated for maybe people.
Or disassociated.
Disassociated. Yeah.
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 So can you break down for listeners what that means, kind of how it plays out physically, and then also like how you're personally feeling about it today, right now in this moment?
Yeah. A letter of disassociation to me meant a lot. I guess the simplest form I could put it as the first person to serve the papers in a divorce.
Oh, I love that. I actually haven't thought of it like that ever. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of how I viewed it. To me, and I won't go off on that now, but it closed two doors for me. It allowed me to have the power and to make my own decisions now, and to say, look, I am no longer going to be a part of Jehovah's Witnesses. I no longer want a part of the Watchtower or your organization. In fact, I don't even want a part of your Jehovah or your Jesus or your governing body. That's how much I don't want of this, and to make it very clear to them. And unbeknownst to me, the next day after I had written that letter, it put things in sync. And I didn't really think that. I thought it was actually going to cause more chaos for me. I was prepared for that. I was prepared for, like, people like, oh no, how could you do that or whatever. But it took it all and it put everything in flow and in sync, because I'm like, okay, now everybody knows where I stand. I know what to expect from them. I don't have to play these mind games of, like, if you see someone in the grocery store, old friend calls up of trying to, ease my new views, on them, is not to scare it away. To me, it erased all that confusion and all that stress, is what it did.
Do you feel like there was some weight removed from you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. After that too, I think in the video, that I sent you. I think my boys, they noticed that, right off the bat.
Mhm.
It was my oldest. He goes, man, he goes, it felt like something left me. And, I felt it, but it was like, well, is that stress or whatever? But I just thought it was very interesting that, he mentioned that before anybody else. And then, my, the younger one, he's like, yeah, dad, it's pretty wild. I can't believe that just happened.
I'm curious. How have you been sleeping? Like on the whole, like in general, how are you sleeping?
Pretty well. I have been, which is surprising. Last night I did have a pretty whack, a lot of weird dreams about the witnesses.
I still have those sometimes, man.
Uh, I was in an assembly. Yeah, man. Yeah, I was at an assembly, but it was like in this real small rinky dink thing, and I was trying to find a chair and couldn't find where I was supposed to go. It was, all that wonderful things that happen at the conventions.
Well, and then the actual announcement itself, what was the wording and what was kind of, I don't know, how did that actually go? You
Were you there?
It was it was very non-climatic, surprising. I don't really know what I was to expect. I did watch the entire meeting though. Not as an ADD person can, is how I watched,
and you were on Zoom.
and I was on Zoom. Exactly. Yeah, I didn't, yeah, personally go there. In fact, I put my wife's and son's name on the Zoom because I didn't know. I didn't know if they're like, well, he's disassociating because he doesn't believe in this, so now we consider him an apostle. I don't know. So I was like, I'll just put their name on there.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You and I talked about this over text, but they actually purposely word it the way they do, where they just, for everyone, whether or not you commit a serious sin in their eyes,
Yeah.
they simply just say that this person is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yeah.
and they make a quick announcement and they move on.
Yeah.
It honestly is kind of a sick burn.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's and it upsetted me in a way, Yeah, it kind of ticked me off, because I was like, yeah, I'm no longer part of Jehovah's Witnesses, but at least say he freaking disassociated himself. I was really hoping I was going to hear disassociated, even though I heard otherwise. But I'm like,
Right. Like cuz you were taking the power.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
you were taking
yeah,
the power in your hands and then they kind of take it from you with the way they announce it.
Yeah, they learned a long time ago. What I sent you is they learned a long time ago, actually back in the '80s, to just remove everything from that announcement because they don't want any liability. They don't want to even tell people in the congregation like, oh, all those people are leaving of their own
yeah,
accord.
yeah, and that makes perfect
Yep.
sense.
Um,
It's like company privacy.
they want it to be more like, oh, what did he do? Did he cheat on his wife? Like,
Oh yeah.
did he evade his
Uh-huh.
taxes?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and then you start to hear the gossip. Well, I heard him and his wife were having problems. Maybe this is what. Then I better check in on sister.
Oh yeah.
And
oh, speaking of that, has anyone checked in on your wife
One person,
from
has. So
from the
yeah,
congregation?
yeah, from our congregation. Yeah, one person. Now that congregation,
okay, well that's good.
the last one we were in, we were only in there for maybe just over a year, because we had left. Stuff was coming up, like you said. It was like there was a lot of things that kind of triggered the wake up. We didn't get to know a whole lot of people real well, at that time. So I think that's why from that congregation we didn't really get any feedback um, from afterwards.
Ironically, you actually were in the exact same congregation as me, Moon Valley.
And I think that's the congregation I met you in as well, or back in the day.
Wow,
Yeah.
Moon Valley. Hey, I've done a lot of sweating with Moon Valley Brothers.
Oh, really?
Done a lot of work with y'all over the years. Many
Huh.
collaborations.
Yeah.
Many indie playlists were listened to in that
Oh, I'm
parking
sure.
lot,
I'm sure.
and maybe even vaping.
Yeah, I know. I was in that parking lot high a few times, but yeah.
But it's so interesting. I do agree with you. Well, so my situation when my announcement happened, I wasn't there at all. So I messaged a brother and I was like, "Can you just tell me if they announce me? I'll never know
Yeah.
because I had no one."
Yeah.
Like, so I at least wanted the feeling of closure of like, okay, I'm officially announced.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about your situation is you turned in your letter and it was pretty quick.
Very quick. Yeah. I was surprised.
Uh, and for me, it played out over a couple months, and I finally got a random text months later, and they're like, "Hey, the brother that sent me this message. God bless him. He said, "Hey, you were announced last night,"
Okay.
and it was kind of this like, yeah, it was kind of this. Okay, finally, I can, even though I'd already moved on. There is something about that announcement that just lets you go, okay, everyone knows now, and let's move forward.
Hmm.
Um,
It's like closing a loop.
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of cleared some of the fog for me. Not all of it, but quite a bit of it, I have to say.
how is your family doing right now?
They're doing all right. My boys, I raising them, I did a little different than as your typical JW. I tried my best not to indoctrinate them. The way I was brought up was very deep indoctrination, deep kind of cult like brain tricks. It was a pretty shitty childhood, for me. So anyway, from that, with the boys, I tried to never do that. So coming out of this and going through it, they're not as affected as they could have been. Now, absolutely yes. So yes, they are. My youngest,
I'm glad to hear that.
because he just turned 13 at the end of June, and so some of the friends, as you're kind of getting that time, boys are changing up and all that, and some are growing faster than others, and you want to hang out with the bigger kids and that type of stuff. So he didn't really have a super good connection at this moment, as far as friends, and he actually already had quite a few in the neighborhood. So he seems, as far as we can tell, is doing fairly well. He was kind of bummed about some of the guys he knew that he used to go riding with and things, but he seems to be taking it okay. My 18-year-old Owen, he takes it a little bit harder because he does look back and more at missing things through high school. Because he just graduated, and he said missing proms and things.
Yeah, I feel that. I was there and it sucked.
Yeah, yeah, he missed all. So he missed that. But this is where, at the time, I was very pissed off at him. Now I'm kind of like, well, you took control of your life because you saw, through. He's never, as far as what he's told me, he's never believed in Jehovah. He doesn't even think he existed in the first place. And he never believed anything Jehovah's Witnesses said. But being raised up through it, those doctrines still sink within you, whether you know it or not. There's still things that I'm finding that I had no idea that I don't need to feel this way anymore.
And also, honestly, if me and Derek started singing one of the old songs right now, you'd probably remember the words.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
One,
Especially out of the old book.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
old book. That's
Man.
exactly what I said. The real bangers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you? Yeah, I think there's one about molesting bees, if I'm
Yes.
not
Oh, I love
mistaken.
that one. I remember looking at it like,
Uh,
now it makes sense. It makes absolute sense now. Yeah. They're a bunch of touchy
um,
touchies.
so are any of your children? You have two boys.
Yeah. Just two boys. Yep.
Are any of them baptized?
No. No, they're not. In fact, I told them, I said, as long as you lived in my house, you can't get baptized until after you move out. Because if you can't move out and support yourself, how the hell are you going to tell a religion that you're gung ho for it?
You
So
you you always had an awareness that maybe you didn't fully realize.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, and that awareness is becoming more aware of that. I had that. It's kind of weird to say it that way,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, it seems like you kind of set your life up before you even knew you were leaving.
it
Maybe
was very subconscious. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because that's really how it's kind of coming to light for me in a way.
that's when I started to realize a lot about myself. Was what the moment my daughter was born, I hand delivered her. She was 2 weeks late.
Wow.
And I had the moment of like she might die, and it was really kind of a coin flip of what happened.
Hmm.
And in that moment I really realized what it meant to like love a child as a father, you know?
Yes.
And so I basically started to have oh shit moments when I realized what that actually meant and then applied it to the scriptures and how forgiving Jehovah really would be with us,
Hmm.
if he really loved us like we were his children,
Right.
because I couldn't think of a single thing she could do that I couldn't forgive her for, and I just wanted to help her. And then at the same time, I had brothers telling me that my beard, was unacceptable. Not just you, Derek. Like many brothers were like, I was trying to
And
be a good dad, and
we're
all they could
always going to
do.
go back to that
I
story.
know.
It's a
Oh, you beard shamed them, eh? Yeah.
oh my gosh.
So yeah, like having a kid, pivotal moment for me where everything started to change because I realized my brothers are not being as forgiving with me as God would be.
Yeah.
Like I think Jesus was dining with, prostitutes and tax collectors and all the baddies. the generals. Like, he was really going around making his rounds to any and everyone, being loving. And I just felt, man, this isn't happening for me. And that started to make me so depressed, bro.
Hmm.
And I bet you felt something similar.
Yeah, I felt that absolutely. Yeah, I just saw it was always supposed to be about love,
Yeah.
and I hear, oh, this is love, and it's the perfect example of a love bombing.
Hmm.
They tell you that all the stage. They're on stage. Oh, and we love you. It's like, I don't even know you. Don't say that. I don't know who the hell you are. You don't love me.
Yeah.
One of the realizations I had one time is, and it was so vivid, and it made me feel like shit. Sitting there at meeting, and this is when they're talking about Armageddon coming, and you're in the basement, and the authorities come in, and they're pressing somebody, saying, hey, where's your elders, or where's the headquarters, where's this, and you're supposed to keep your mouth shut and deal with it, right, and even up to death. And I remember sitting there hearing that, and thought to myself, I said, honestly, would I die for that? And I said, no, I don't think I would. And I go, then the second question was, well, what do you do with that? And then the third was, is that fair to anybody else around me?
Yeah. See, I get that.
And that kind of started a few different things too, and that kind of just started the bigger things really started to be pushed in motion. I had a lot of questions and things beforehand, but that really, got things moving.
Yeah, I think as we talk with a lot of people, both in just our personal lives and through this podcast, I think we start to see a lot of people have doubts for a long time.
Hmm.
And you're just always taught to kind of suppress things and just be in the motions of things, and these big things pop up, and then you kind of go about your routine of things, and you kind of put it on the back burner, and but there's just all these doubts that continue to linger. And I think those are the people that they may not realize it, but they have a level of awareness in their own brains,
Yeah.
and they're like, something doesn't seem right here.
Hmm.
We do a lot of private thinking as witnesses, and they literally encourage you to sit in your thoughts,
Oh, absolutely.
And so what happens with people who have RAM to spare is you have the witness thoughts compartmentalized, and then you have the rest of your brain too. And so for me, that was like 20% witness stuff, and then the rest was stuff I was doing,
Hmm.
music and projects and work and my, everything. So yeah, I think we can like start to compartmentalize your life and have extra RAM to be thinking and pondering other things, just like you do the witness stuff.
Do you do you mind taking a step back? And you'd mentioned, and by all means take this question wherever you want, but you said you kind of had a shitty childhood. I what
Yeah.
what was your
Yeah.
childhood like? Can you kind of describe, all of that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of strings to follow on my childhood, but I'll try to put it the best way as possible. So my mother and my father, they weren't of any religion or anything. In fact, I think they met in Wisconsin when they were late teenagers, on that. So anyways, one thing turns into another. She gets pregnant with me, and they're not married. My mom's parents and father, and she had a brother and sister. Very good family. Parents, my grandparents were amazing. I absolutely love them to death. They not Jehovah's Witnesses, never were. So, they were great people. And my mom ended up moving back to Salt Lake with her parents, being pregnant and things. And Dan, my father, he was still over there, Wisconsin. And so he decided to move over to Utah, did that and had me got married. During the marriage, my mother's best friend, mom, was a Jehovah's Witness. My mom's best friend, she was not. In fact, I guess they went and traveled the country together and things. And my mom was telling me that she really, really looked up to her. She wanted to be her best friend. And one day her best friend's like, hey, I'm starting to study with my mom, about this Jehovah's Witness thing. You think you'd be interested in too? And of course, my mother's like, oh, absolutely. So next thing you know, she's studying, getting involved in this witness and being married to my father, who has really no interest in it at all. Comes home to her saying, oh, look, in fact, I think this was before they were married. and which still bothers me because I don't know why they would have got married after this. But so before they're married, she goes, "Well, we can't have sex anymore until we're married." Right? And he's like, "What the fuck? What is this? This is insane." Yeah. And she goes, "And by the way, no birthdays, no holidays. We're just not going to do that anymore." And he's like, "This is nuts." So they end up getting married, and that basically destroyed their marriage. Was her becoming a Jehovah's Witness. So after they were divorced, my mom had some friends, and like I said, I think she had me when she was either 19 or 20, and so she would party, and I remember I was always along. She just brought me everywhere as a little kid, and I thought it was cool because there's always something going on, you know. And so she got baptized and things, and then this guy and his friends moved to Salt Lake, where we were living at the time, and I was maybe I think about 4, and one of the guys' name was Mike Jetmore, and Mike Jetmore somehow wooed my mother, and they got married. There was about a 5 or 6 years age gap between them. In fact, he was, I think, just turned 19 when they got married,
Whoa.
like just freshly 19. So, and my mom was like 24, 25 at the time.
Okay.
I was 19 when I got married, by the way. Pretty common.
You too? Yeah. Yeah.
I was 20.
Yeah. You were 20? Oh, really? Wow. Was that your first wedding?
Whoa. I didn't know that. That's crazy. I need to catch up with you about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. And, but yeah, so they get married. But the thing is, it wasn't just that she married, a guy named Mike Jetmore, who's a Jehovah's Witness. The Jetmore family was one of those like pinnacle families, right? They're the ones where all everybody in the family is giving me parts of the assemblies. And my grandpa, or I don't even want to call him my grandpa, John Jetmore, he was part of the original liaison committee, over in Los Angeles. So they sparked.
Yeah, and you're talking about the hospital liaison committee.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So
So this is the committee for blood. Yeah.
about the blood. Yeah, yeah. So he was part of the original parts of that. In fact, I remember growing up and hearing about the liaison constantly, all the time. Because we'd be over at their house eating dinner, and he'd be on the phone talking to somebody at the hospital. But yeah, so he had a big part in that. So the family was very, very well known. So what ended up happening was they got married there in Salt Lake. The family was so close knit. He couldn't be along, away that for too long. So,
And I just want to confirm,
yeah.
Being in Salt Lake, not Mormon.
Not Mormons. Nobody was Mormon. Yeah, yeah, they're in Salt Lake. Yeah, the only reason why that part of my family was in Salt Lake was because my grandpa was in the Air Force, and then after he left the Air Force, he was air traffic control, and he got stationed or worked at the Salt Lake City Airport. So that's why, yeah, the whole Salt Lake City thing. But yeah, it had nothing to do with any of the Mormons or anything.
So you were about 4,
Yeah,
and then Mike became your father. Is that the way I'm hearing it?
well, yeah, and this is another thing that triggered and kind of really shutting down stuff. As far as for me, was I had found out fairly recently that I was taken away from my biological father illegally.
That's heavy.
Whoa.
Then which put him in a yeah, and then that put him in a bad spot because he was so young at the time too. He had no money to get a lawyer to try to get me back. They they so we lived in Salt Lake, and then my mom and Mike decided to move back to Long Beach where the other family was and took me with them. And and he still had legal rights with me, all these other things. So my father Dan, he wasn't able to get the money for the lawyer and all that, and they kind of convinced him, hey, maybe it's just better that he stays there, especially now that he's going to be with the Jehovah's Witness, because that's so polar opposite of what you are. It might confuse him. And so he decided, well, I guess that might be the best idea then.
Wow.
So that's how that happened. Now, through my whole life as a child, I was kind of basically just told, well, he didn't want you as a kid, so I adopted you because I loved you.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So I thought that my whole life growing up. So the Jetmores, they get there. I was always kind of a outspoken kid. I was always told that I would just tell you how it was and didn't really care and do whatever. I'm still kind of like that now, unfortunately. Yeah. And
Yes, you are.
but the Jetmores were very controlling. I'm trying to think of the word. They mimicked the governing body and their setup within their family. So
They're like organized as a family.
completely. And I didn't know this as a child. I didn't see it. Kind of being in the organization, you don't see it. So it's almost I was in the Jehovah's Witness organization and then also in this Jetmore organization.
Yeah, that's actually common.
Yeah.
That's pretty common.
Yep. And had all their own, there was their own rules within that too as well.
Yep.
So me being me, it didn't mix with them at all. And I basically, my wife tells me, she goes, "You were abused in every way other than sexually."
Mm.
And growing up as a child, I always thought it was my fault. I always thought I was bad and wrong, and I don't, and I'm afraid of my father because I'm not a good kid. If I was better, he would like me. There was just lots of abuse.
Oh,
Through all that, but through that just kind of crushes you as a person and crushes your soul. So you put that away.
yeah. I think the tough thing you start to learn with enough distance away from it is, a parent's supposed to they're supposed to help the child become naturally who they're meant to be.
Yeah,
They're supposed to guide them and put some guardrails up and be protective, but they're supposed to be a guide. And if they see that a child's kind of geared towards one certain path, okay, let me help them towards that path.
yeah,
And the problem is if you're a little bit kind of not against if you're a little bit against the grain, as a Jehovah's Witness or someone that grows up in a cult or a high control group, you're gonna get course corrected real quick, constantly.
hmm
Yeah. Or if you're in one of these sub families. I can't believe we haven't talked about that, but dude, Dustin, you are so right. We have to we should do an interstitial or something on that, Derek, because that's a whole other thing, man. That
Oh gosh, yeah, I could go off that as a whole other subject. Yeah.
So okay, so you're growing up now as this youth that's has a stepfather. I didn't actually know this. I didn't know that Jet Moore was kind of an adopted name.
Yeah, it was so. It's one of those stories that's so long. I did. uh, when people ask, you got to go into this thing, and they look at you like you're crazy because it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to them yet. So I just never really said anything
Yeah.
to most people. I didn't want to have to explain the scenario.
So if you grew up this way, and even as a young child, you kind of felt a little conflicted. You got baptized. When did you get baptized? What was kind of the mindset about you kind of continuing down this path of being a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, actually, I didn't get baptized until I was 21 on there. And the way that happened was quite interesting too. It's I had kind of come back to the truth. I had, or God, wow, I had come back to the JWs. Um,
You'll never
'Cause
stop saying
the
it.
I know it's like, man, you slip up, and you're like,
You
God damn it,
fucking truth.
you know,
And you've already said with the friends, so
with the friends. I know, geez, man, I'm gonna start giving everybody flashbacks.
it's okay. It's week one. You have a year of flexibility on that.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
so you accepted Jehovah as your Lord and Savior and Jesus Christ, and you
Yeah, I accepted all that and said yes, in front of the assembly there, and it felt awesome.
What age again?
I was 21 when I got baptized. When I was about 16, we lived in Montana. We went from Long Beach to Montana because my mom wanted my dad to get away from his friends because he was an alcoholic. So we did a culture shock and went up to Montana. Actually, not too far, Derek, from where your brother
Oh,
lives,
okay, yeah.
up there. And yeah, so when we went up there, and so I hook up with this girl. Yeah, so I hook up with this girl, and then all the sexuality stuff kicks in,
Well,
right? So, but I'm
well,
16.
what does hook up mean? Because we need to clarify that.
Hook up means basically everything other than actual penetration.
Okay.
I mean, anything, everything you can imagine that was going on.
Okay.
Other than why? Because she had this whole thing like, well, we should save ourselves
Yeah.
for marriage.
When,
Sure.
Or a Mormon.
It's amazing the things you can justify when you're a witness.
Oh,
You're like, oh, this is real love. God knows that I really love her, so these things are
Dang.
okay.
You guys are smoother than me. Damn. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly right. So it's just, but so that happened, and that kind of I think started my downfall. And I think Mike Jetmore, he realized that and wanted me out of Montana because he didn't want me to give the family kind of a bad name, right? So he bought me a one-way plane ticket to take off to California
Oh.
to hopefully get straightened out by his brothers. And so I went down there. It lasted like 2 months, and I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here, right? So I ended up getting in touch with my biological father, Dan, and he still lived in Salt Lake. And he's like, you know what? You want to come live with me for a bit and see what that's like?
Yeah.
And, it was really cool because, they weren't of any type of religion whatsoever. I didn't feel guilty around them. I felt like I could be who I was. But still at that time, it was though I didn't want to be a witness, but I still believed in the witness.
Mm.
I still believed the organization. I still believed Jehovah. I still believed, the rules. I believed I was a bad person.
It's all you knew from four.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so that kind of crept in and made a lot of confusion within me, and with that family too, because he was a great dad to his, he has another daughter and some, so my half brother and sisters, or I just call 'em my brother and sisters, awesome, beautiful people, and I was so confused and angry at the time, angry at him, angry at everybody. I was angry too at the things. I'm like, well, you guys celebrate Christmas, so that means you're not going to make it, past Armageddon. I remember telling him that, and so I remember telling these things, and at the time I was like, you know what? I don't want to ruin their family. They don't need to deal with this. I haven't been part of their family. So why make it worse? And I ended up meeting this guy named Dan Dipple. Even if it offends, all the power. But anyhow, so I met him in Utah, and he was coming down to here in Phoenix, Arizona. He's like, "Hey, man, you want to come down there?" And I'm like, "Shit, yeah, whatever. That's cool." Ended up down here completely out of the truth. Ended up moving in with a guy named Joe Robards, and to find out he was disfellowshipped. And so we went wild together. I mean, just absolutely
And
wild.
you're 20.
Yeah, I was about 19, 20 at that time. Yeah, through
Okay.
those years. Yeah, because I moved here in July of 99 is when I got down here. So July of 99 up to about late 20s before I turned 21 and things flipped real quick. Yeah, it was just party central.
But that's an interesting thing because we've spoken about this before. It's like, what's on in your mind where it's party central,
It was rebellion.
and but then like a year later you're dedicated to Jehovah and you're baptized.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really that drastic. It was really that drastic. What happened? So out partying also comes with drugs, right?
Yeah.
I never did like the hardcore stuff. I think I tried ecstasy twice, whatever. But I was more into like smoking weed and mushrooms. Mushrooms were my thing, man. I love those, right? And so we ended up just being the people we were. We met some pretty high profile drug dealers, and they had some peyote, and they're like, "Hey, look, when 2000 comes around, do you want to go drink some peyote tea out in Payson?" We're like, "Oh, fuck, man, that would be awesome, right?" So we're like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." So anyhow, we go to this apartment where these drug dealer guys live, and it was just like the freaking movies, man. They open this closet, and you're like, "What the hell?" Any drug you can imagine was in there, organized beautifully, all this stuff. So he grabs 2 packs of like Marlboro cigarettes, were actually just all joints, right? They grabbed those, and they had the tea brewing on the thing, and they're like, "Well, we actually made it pretty special." They're like, "We did some peyote in there, some mushrooms, and just a tad of mescaline." Right?
What a night. What a night.
And yeah, well, and then you think you're invincible. so so anyhow, they make this stuff up, and we get up there, and I just kind of had just a bad feeling. I was just like, what, I don't know if I really want to do this. This is a pretty hardcore drug. We don't have anybody to kind of like guide us, and always guys knew that was a thing you needed to have guide you.
Yeah.
And so we get out there, everybody starts drinking it, and I'm like, you know what, I don't want to be on my own level here by myself, smoking weed. Maybe I'll just join them. So I was stupid and took a swig, and yeah, it led into the most insane trip. I mean, that's a story there, and it ended really bad. It threw me into a set of panic attacks
Oh,
that lasted about 6 months, one after another, right?
Whoa.
But that forced me in my mind at the time to get back into the religion,
yeah.
to go back to the Jehovah's Witnesses, because I was being punished. I really thought I thought Jehovah was punishing me.
Because it was grounding.
I thought I lost his favor.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot, but there's an innate guilt and shame. And if you're living your life and part of that life living is making a mistake in some way, shape, or form, you always go back to like, oh, well, the reason I'm feeling this way is because I've strayed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm a bad person. I'm sinful. Satan is, has gotten me to some extent. And it's just that shame and guilt cycle that we always have. And it's like, I don't know, from my opinion, being so far disconnected from it, it's like it has nothing to do with that, but that's how we're taught.
Yes.
And so naturally, as you said, you there's a party that's like, oh, I got to get back on track.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was the only way to save myself. I had got so close to suicide more times than I could count because the set of panic. Well, and plus two, I was here in Arizona with no family connection anymore because I basically had shut myself off from my biological father to my own doing, not to theirs, to make that clear. But the Jetmore family viewed me as a disfellowship person, even though I had never been baptized or was even a publisher at the time. They've still viewed me and treated me as a disfellowship person.
You were disfellowshipped on the family level.
At the family level, yes, they would have nothing to do with me because I was an embarrassment to the Jetmore family, you know.
Yep.
And so I was left out of that.
Well, Dustin, I don't want to comb over it like
Yeah.
very quickly. Like you felt like you wanted to end your life.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. The panic and the guilt, um, and the place where I felt I was at my life at that time, I felt I could never get out. I felt like I was unlovable.
Hmm.
That I would never be able to come to the level of what the organization needs to be loved. Is how I was pushed to during this time of my life. And but really what it was just a bunch of panic attacks, right? But being a kid who's alone, no family to talk to, anything like that, I'm just trying to throw things together to make things logical. What's happening, to me. I'm like, man, did I get possessed? Did like Jehovah let a demon possess me to make me feel like this? I had no idea.
Yeah.
So
It's not to be overlooked that there are so many stories of people that have
yeah.
felt
Yeah.
that
And
way.
it's such a hard
And
thing.
and
Hmm.
and and for every person like yourself that has found the way to overcome that, there are unfortunately many people that
Oh,
have not.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so sad the amount of people that have decided to ultimately take that route and end their life. So I'm very thankful that you didn't.
No, yeah. I mean, the last time that I ever had that thought, very clear, and I was ironing a shirt, and I had like full blown panic for no reason. I remember ironing that shirt, and I'm like, Jehovah, I said, take this away or kill me now. I said, just do one or the other because you can't live this way. So you just cannot live this way.
Yeah.
But I remember by doing that though, it gave me just enough pep to like kind of just go over it. That day I actually ended up going to Barnes and Nobles, and I found a book about panic attacks,
Yeah.
and I read it right then and there. I went through the whole freaking thing, and I go, this is what I have. And so I ended up beating panic attacks all on my own from that book.
I love to hear that. It's like $20 and you just like solve your problem out of need.
Oh, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you talk about mental, gymnastics, but yeah, from that book that saved me.
Well, and the interesting thing too is someone who may be listening that maybe wasn't raised like us or in a high control group or a cult, going to read something like that is not really allowed. You
A secular book.
No, nope.
Yeah. Highly frowned on, even if it's self-help.
yeah, to get a mindset book, uh the only mindset adjustment book that you need is the Bible or the society's books.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thankfully,
Even something like Dave Ramsey, okay, The Money Makeover. He mentions God
Hmm.
all the time, and he talks about certain things. It was frowned upon to even read that book because of his interpretation of what it means to be godly is a little different. And that's like the level of scrutiny that you have over what you can read. I mean, some brothers would not even be comfortable with Dave Ramsey, genuinely, just because he has a different. They basically don't want to attach themselves or Jehovah's Witnesses to the name Dave Ramsey because of Dave Ramsey's
Hmm.
personal views. It can be that easy.
yeah, it's a testament to the fact possibly how you were raised, although conflicting, that you naturally had an ability to accept multiple input sources, because the reality is you're not supposed to really look at that stuff, from my opinion.
Oh no, no, and that's always very frightening too. Because here you are as a person, yeah, already panicking and thinking God's punishing you, and then you go and try to push that a little further, you know. But I remember that happening, and of course, you know, we're always told, you know, pray to Jehovah, and you know, just keep asking and asking, you know, and he'll finally give you, you know, what it is you want, and or what it is you need. And so I thought that's what that was. You know, I tied that book to my prayer of saying I'm either going to kill myself, so Jehovah stepped in and, you know, provided me what I needed at that time, right? And so that started me on my path back to uh, going to the meetings. You know, is what it was. It was going to the meetings. I I grew up, you know, ADD and dyslexic, right? So I kind of got over the whole reading thing. I can read just fine now, but I remember growing up, even through high school, you know, it was tough. So, it's very set up like a school or a business, right? And it's constantly going over material and history and things, you know, of that nature, which is great.
So the way you were raised though, it was like this is I really have to focus in on this. Like the way your mind works. Like
Yeah,
I know personally every time I went to meeting, I I I think back now and there's more of a I get my own personal new light.
yeah,
And I'm
absolutely,
like,
yeah,
I just hated this shit all the time. I hated going to meetings.
yeah.
It was an exercise in
Yeah.
of just like suffering through education that I had no desire to want to learn these things. But you forced yourself back into it. You had this epiphany. You're in this state where you're like, I have to go back, and so you really locked in.
Oh yeah, I locked in like a laser beam, right? Locked in. In fact, I grabbed the Insight on the Scriptures books, and I was going through them because I knew how much things I did not know. You know, so I remember,
I have a leather bound set right next to me still.
yeah, just no, I put mine in storage just recently. But yeah, I remember going through those, you know, and just going through all the different articles and stuff. But I remember reading through them, and this kept popping in my head. I go, how is this it? You know, some of the subjects they were so short, and it was such a big word. I go, how is this it?
Yeah.
There's no more, you know, and that always really bothered me. But you still have that fear of looking outside because of the apostasy,
Yeah.
you know, and then like, oh no, that's going to infect me and, you know, turn everything wrong. But yeah, I just remember going through those and, you know, finding,
Well, the interesting thing is we are taught that we are taught apostates are bad. We go to convention and we see apostates with their signs, and oh, they're evil and whatnot. And the reality is Trent and I guess could be considered over the last few years apostates,
mm-hmm,
because we don't.
Depending on it,
Yeah.
I'll fight anyone who wants to call me that with words.
Yeah, but it's like, what have I done over the last few years, Dustin, to really turn you away? You know, like,
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, like, I've been living my own life of discovery and own life of trying to unravel, my new reality. And all I do is hope is every other person that's still in any one of these cults or high control groups, they find their way
yeah,
out.
no, absolutely,
That's it. There's nothing evil about my life course post Jehovah's Witness, but that's what we're taught.
mm-hmm. I got
Uh,
a question if that's okay.
sure, it's a conversation.
Yeah, that's popped in my head. Yeah, so the last few days, I had to go to Prescott and do a job up there, and so on my way home, you know, it kind of popped into my head. And listening to different, you know, podcasts and things, you always hear, you know, some of the people say, "God, the people are such sweethearts in the truth." You know, everyone's a great, great person. You know, and I agree to that to 50%
Hmm.
because I have a feeling the other 50% are pretty shitty people. You know, and I think I always felt so conditioned to force myself to interact with people I hated their core values as a person. You know, as a person, I'm like, God, you are the biggest fucking douchebag. You know, or you're just a shithole to your wife, or you know, but you're taught to, oh, you got to put up with the person. You know, and it was just, you know, when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, but I've never fully agreed to it. I don't know if I'm just a bad, you know.
No, I think you actually learn, the more you get along, you learn that you have an ability, an empathetic, maybe an awareness that other people don't have, where you can see the real person. And however that manifests, whatever ideologies you believe, you have something built in you where you can see bullshit pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have that. I think Trent has that as well.
Hmm.
But there's also this level of we're just really taught to love bomb. We're taught to always keep the smile on. We're taught to do all these things, and it's like, and then the moment the lights are off and we're at home, a lot of people are just assholes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
You
exhausting.
know, it's exhausting.
I I think it's I think it's 50-50 and 75-25,
True. No, absolutely. Yeah.
and the other way, depending on the congregation, depending on the state, depending on who you keep your friends, like, it's such a loaded question. I think statistically, most would.
Well, to be fair, he has not yes asked the question.
Okay, true.
He has made a very great statement, but I'm still waiting for the question.
Um,
um,
I
I guess that was
But
pretty
go.
much kind of the question, right? I think we kind of answered the question as far as seeing, seeing the people that way. I just think that it could become a very toxic way to live, to constantly interact with ones who just completely upset you as a person,
It's like bad
right?
associations spoil useful habits. That is a
Yes.
scripture, but it is still true. Like the people, if you're associating with the wrong people, it can mess you up.
Absolutely. I had,
Well, and I was just saying, we're taught for the most part, everyone in the Christian congregation is a good
it,
person because they found Jehovah and they found the organization, and even though they might have flaws, like they're good people, and you just start to go,
yeah.
no, they're not.
And then there's also like the older person who goes to meeting every single meeting is automatically one of the best people because they're like old and wise and they go to meeting regularly. They're like a staple. Those are like
Uh-huh.
the best people.
Oh yeah. And the Candyman growing up,
But you,
whoever the Candyman was.
yeah, well, and you just realize, like, if you're alive, if you've lived this world, you are inevitably a blend of wonderful and terrible because that's the world as well.
Yeah, facts.
Hmm.
There's no old person that you really could have a conversation with and they couldn't tell you of an atrocity they've done, either
Yeah.
overtly on purpose or accidentally.
Hmm.
But we don't really go there as witnesses. We don't really get to the shit,
No, you don't ever.
because we want to just be very surface level, smiley, love bomby, and no person's gonna really tell you their story very truthfully because it's too real, man, and it's dangerous to be very real when you're trying to
Social credit matters.
you're trying to stay in the confines of this organization.
Hmm.
You don't start having real conversations until you get out of it,
Right? Yeah.
you know. And so that's why I'm so glad you're here.
I have a thought, Derek. I have a thought and a question. So we were talking about apostates earlier because I don't
Yeah.
I don't see myself as one now all the time, right? Because it depends on who I'm talking to in the lens. But like I remember distinctly some brothers up in Flagstaff having real big ideological differences with how things were done and squeaky wheel type stuff. Like these brothers were having contacts with Bethel, and there were brothers that were then ostracized. And I've heard about this happening in other places. And so I think genuinely, like, well, I guess the question I'm asking is, Dustin, have you heard of anything like that? Like brothers that are maybe sincerely looking for truth or looking at outside sources and saying, "Hey, this new research paper said this.
No,
Like, I need to talk to Bethel about that." No,
no,
you haven't?
no. Yeah, I never, yeah. Especially being in that. No, no.
That's like another form of family, I think. I think that there's some like think tank type
Yeah.
people who within the organization are sharing ideas, even outside ones.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There might be some hidden stuff, but all three of us know, if someone's having a conversation like that, it's within themselves.
Yeah, true.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Uh huh.
it's too dangerous to, even with a great friend.
Yeah.
Like, years ago, if I chatted with you, Dustin, and really truly had a conversation with you, you would have been like, "Oh, he's an apostate. I have to stay away from him. He's
Yeah.
very dangerous." And
Yeah.
and it's a much of an organization of telling on people. So
Hmm.
you would probably feel very inclined, or if you didn't, you would tell your wife, and your wife would say, you gotta go tell the elders because he's very dangerous to the congregation.
Hmm.
And that's just how it is. So I think it's a lot internal, and I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Oh, I think there's a tremendous amount of internal turmoil, from those thoughts. You're constantly having to hide yourself. Someone mentioned the other day, they go, it kind of sounds similar to someone coming out, as being gay or lesbian or whatever. And
Yeah.
and I go, you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's how it is, because you have so much inside of you that you're holding down. You can never be yourself. You can never be yourself, even with your best friend. I remember times. I mean, the guy's my best friend now. Luckily, he fell out forever ago. Did a letter of disassociation. We didn't have a relationship for about 20 years. Now we're best friends again.
I just wanted to say that, like, I do remember a very specific scenario with this brother who was kind of going back and forth with a bunch of brothers about some ideological stuff. And it was just really unfortunate because he got branded an apostate so fast. And it was real unfortunate. And it made me scared because the thing is, I don't want people to see me like that. That is not like, I think that should be okay to talk about stuff and like with trusted people. That's why the trust barrier exists of the elder system. And so what happened a lot is, like, you say, "Hey, I'm worried about this," or "I just saw this article," and then it's just like brushed away. And you're like, "No, I'm important. I got to talk about this." I mean, have you guys experienced this?
Well, I'll just say for me, fortunately for me, the way my brain works is once I realized I was in a place where I was kind of starting to wake up, I started to go, I need to know what the ramifications are of any outward appearance of me being different
Yeah,
or not like others in the organization. So if I do this or if I do that or if I say that, what is the result of those actions?
Yeah.
And through my research, I overwhelmingly heard, don't do any of that. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Don't act on it. Even with your trusted friends, your loved ones, people who care about you, because it will not go
it
well.
does not.
You know what I honestly used to do? I used to start asking people if they were into UFOs. And that would give me pretty much everything I needed to know. Someone who's like, "Oh hell yeah." I'd be like, "Ooh, okay,
Hmm.
bet." Their mind is open, you know?
That's a good way to do that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you inevitably find people, like we talked about earlier, is you find people that are kind of your people, and they may not even realize that they're kind of fringe and whatever, but you do find your people. And I'm really thankful, Dustin, that you found one of your old friends, and we've reconnected,
yeah.
and it's a tough time to be in, just to go back to the reality of where you're at is you're in it now. I mean, you just
Yeah.
got announced. You just, I mean, would you relate to the idea of you just woke up? Does that ring for you?
Well, I would say, I think my initial wake up was probably where I had no doubt anymore. Was probably about 5 months ago.
Wow, that is so soon. Holy shit. That was 5 months ago?
Tell me about that. Walk me through that.
Yeah. Well, but I think I had so much buildup. I think the amount of buildup,
Yeah.
that took a while. But until I woke up and I'm like, I don't have a doubt anymore. This is the thing. Yeah, it's probably been about 5 6 months on that.
Honestly, good for you, man.
So
Well, and that's why, again, like, I'm so thankful for you to be on this podcast with us, because I really think that you and where you're at in this very specific moment in time is something that I think people hearing your thought process and how it plays out and kind of what you've been through over the last few months is very unique and very helpful for people that may be in a similar situation,
yeah,
that just randomly catch this podcast and are brave enough to hit play.
it definitely is therapeutic.
Yeah. So walk me through 5 months ago. What was going on?
All right. I might just here. I'm gonna go back just a little bit further because there was a big episode that led to the whole motion
Okay. Yeah.
of this. Mike Jetmore, they have a family house down in Mexico, down in Baja, off of Cabo San Lucas down there. So anyhow, I go down there this last time, bring our friends around the corner, Ryan and Christy. They come with us down there. The time before I there, my father was there. His effect on me is horrible, right? I try not to ever see him. I was like, well, I'll go down to the Mexico house without him there this time. So I bring Ryan and Christy and things. He has all these cameras up, so you can see everything. And he's like calling me up and doing his whole bullshit stuff, just to mess with me. So anyhow, I ended up unplugging all the cameras because I got freaking ticked. I'm like, this is stupid. It's retarded. So I unplug all this stuff, and I had this overwhelming feeling of somebody watching me, and feeling guilty myself. And then something clicked where I go, why do I feel like I'm being watched, and why do I feel guilty? I'm not doing anything wrong. And just by that one weird simple thought unraveled a whole lot of shit, because I it made me lose fear of Mike Jetmore. And Mike Jetmore represented to me the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Because everything that he ever did to me was in the name of the Jehovah's Witnesses. I was spanked, beat, whatever, because I did something wrong according to him and to the Jehovah's Witnesses on there. So by being start to relieve myself of him, started to allow me to really question the things I've had in my mind for a long time. I think I had a lot of questions throughout my life. Some of them, especially being married with children, I was afraid to really ask, because I'm like, God damn it, if I find out what I think it is, how do I convince my wife? Because she's not, at that point, she's always been further in than me by far. I mean, God, she's a saint compared to me. And,
Yes, she is.
but yeah, so that's what that's really what triggered it, was that. And then a few other things was when I had asked myself about being in the basement, and being asked, hey, will you give us the location of the governing body, or whoever it may be, and if not, we're going to kill you. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to save myself, because
Can you explain that to people that don't know? Because
yeah,
I think Trent, you may have been maybe gone at that time. I don't know, but that's a wild
yeah,
video.
yeah. So yeah, they had the video and then the watchtowers.
I saw that video. It was part of why I left, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So and then so you see these people sitting there in a basement, because Babylon the Great has fallen, and the governments and things are coming after the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're gonna stay strong because they're the one true religion that God has chosen here on earth, right?
Yeah, it's basically
But if they were to come to try to find out our leaders, we're supposed to keep our mouth shut.
Can I just say can
Yeah,
I say something? Like it was always different for me because I was raised on a ranch and as a hunter and a fisher and as a guy who have guns. And so those videos come out and it was always so hard for me because in my head I'm like, okay, wait, like who's the military attacking? Like is the US Army attacking me? Like, why are they doing that? I'm on their side. My dad's a veteran.
yeah,
Like, what's happening? And like, oh, are they breaking down my door? Like, if they don't have a warrant, I'm probably gonna have to start shooting.
yeah,
Like, because I'm gonna protect my home. When I would watch these videos, it was super anxiety central for me because I'm like, wait a second, I'm a pacifist. Okay, like so I have my guns and I'm choosing to not use them. I'm choosing to let them barge in and take my family because I'm a pacifist. And then I have to give up numbers to save my family. Like, oof.
yeah.
Like my OPSEC brain is telling me not to. Like, could I protect vital information? Yeah,
it's
but like,
it's really interesting, and
it's so hard.
You have to turn off so many warning lights,
Yeah.
to even to allow yourself to go there.
when I think the interesting thing is and just to kind of create the picture for this for people that may not understand. So what the Jehovah's Witness organizations start doing is creating, for lack of a better word, content to us to kind of teach us and guide us over video. And so for years, all of us growing up, it was very black and white on paper and Watchtower and Wake magazines and reading these books. But they started to transition into the new way of things and started creating video content. And so we would go to these conventions, assemblies, like we'd mentioned before, and they'd have this long talk. I mean, these things, it's crazy. We just sit for hours on end. A 3-day convention, 8 hours straight each day. Kids as well. trying to keep them all wrangled up, to make sure that they're paying attention in this big assembly hall. And but then it's like, okay, well, you'd have this hour-long talk, and then we're going to close out with a video. And and you'd have this 5-10 minute video, whatever,
Yeah.
and it'd be like, oh, this is great, we're finally getting some stuff that's not, crazy boring, but this specific video, and I don't remember, it came out years ago, it's 2016, 2015, I don't, but
Yeah, probably around. Yeah.
it was a video, kind of decrypting or describing a way of a family at Armageddon, or maybe the Great Tribulation, which is a whole nother topic. Yeah, it's a description of a family, and you're seeing them in their basement with the door locked, and police are coming to like open the door and raid them, simply because of the fact that they're Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. It's a very dramatic scene. I mean,
It's very dramatic.
it scared the crap out of kids.
It scared everyone, and it's like,
Yeah.
this is what it's gonna be like. And like Trent said, they're very pacifist. They're very like, hey, like, we're gonna stand true until the end. So I guess what I wanted to get into, we were talking a little bit about this and that, but what I wanted to get back to was, you came to this point where you were, 5 months of kind of, or quite a while, but then about 5 months ago, you kind of got to this point where you kind of woke up or made this decision where you're like, I gotta do stuff. So what was that? To walk me through that.
Yeah. So it actually brought up a lot of anxiety, during the time, because I started realizing the seriousness of it. I think sometimes I joke a lot in most of my situations, but putting that aside, the emotions that I still carry and have gone through with that are they're they're upsetting, but so I guess anyhow, going through that. Oh,
Well, I mean, I don't mean to interject. Do you want to talk about those emotions?
oh yeah, yeah. Um, well, I think one of the main ones is first having those questions, and when you kind of dig down, say even starting with with Russell, and you look at the pyramid thing, in reality, the guy's whatever, he's in the pyramids and stuff like that. But when you're inside, that is gigantic. That's it starts to blow apart your world. I think finding those things, there's few little things I think throughout the years that put cracks in it. Learning about hypocrisy. It's like, oh, things are, that guy's, he's an elder and doing this and that. So you kind of realize people are still, that way. But when you come to earth shattering finds of that nature, to find out, the guy who supposedly started a movement and things was off doing things that we wouldn't even speak of. And so that left me feeling I was a boat without an anchor. And it felt scary for the first time, because like, I hear everybody else say it too. We had all the answers. They didn't make sense, a lot of them, but you had an answer. And starting to lose that and learn that some of this stuff is utter bullshit, just felt like I was kind of starting to drift. And that felt scary.
Was there a part of you that was trying to suppress those kind of new thoughts and emotions?
Oh, absolutely. I still kind of questioned myself through the whole thing. It still pops up to this day. Like I was out working today, and I saw a magazine that looked like a watchtower. It wasn't. It was just some like AARP ad or something. But it made me think of that, and then and because I was by a cemetery, and I'm like, man, I hope I made the right decision.
Oh, yeah.
But then you kind of snap out of it again, and you realize, yes, I did. But, you just run through all your facts.
Yeah, yeah, and it's unfortunate. A lifetime of indoctrination
Oh my,
does not go away instantly.
yeah,
Yeah, despite the fact that you're in a new mindset, or in a new place, yeah, you're always going to see. Well, I don't want to say always, but you will see things that trigger this thought,
yeah, and I'm finding that, yeah,
and you're like, "Fuck!" Like, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that my brain has control over me in this manner.
yeah,
That I see a dumb magazine and immediately takes me to this place that I don't want to be.
It's crazy how many existential crises you have when you're leaving this kind of, it's like crazy.
right, yeah.
without any control of your own.
And what still blows me away is the thought of having the Jehovah's Witnesses trigger bad emotional feelings, right? It was never supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be we're the happiest people on earth. Their watchtowers aren't supposed to trigger, panic, and fear. And that's the guilt.
Mm.
But yet they do. And I think being in it for so long, we adjust that to feel
Yeah.
we take bad feelings and try to filter them as good,
Yeah.
as being persecution is a good thing. Feeling bad is a good thing. That means this is a bad world. The fact that I feel bad validates that this world is exactly what the Jehovah's Witnesses say.
Well, they'll always create a us versus them mentality. They'll always remind us that we're on, the small path, the thing that's, we're different than everyone else. And if you see something pop up that, kind of makes you feel a certain way, yeah, that should be happening because of what we're going through. And it's legitimately a doomsday cult where we're always kind of in fear of whatever.
Yeah.
I want to add something real quick because you had just mentioned the pyramid. My name is Trinity. That's three of something. And then you have the Trinity, the belief of the Trinity, which we were working to like talk people out of. But then there's also the Trinity test, which was like the nuclear event. And so there's all these things about Trinity. And then I start looking at the old books, and they're rife with symbology related to pyramids and like just so much deep Freemason, like Masonic style
Yeah.
symbology. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. And so for me, it wasn't all fear. Like there was this inquisitiveness of like, what's the hidden meaning? Like I didn't know they used to put pyramids on shit, but now there's watchtowers. Like what does that mean? And so it's just like this brain teaser too. It wasn't all traumatic for me either, even though it was.
Well, and that's the thing you find out as you talk with more and more people, everyone's going to have a little bit different something that maybe triggers their wake up or their kind of thought process. And some people unfortunately will have very traumatic experiences. For me, it was very much along those lines where I went down the path of this isn't logical. I've had my own abuse, but this isn't logical. This doesn't make sense. They're talking about pyramids. None of this is modern day doctrine.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you're just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Generations of generations.
And it's true. Like you only go like, gosh, I can only take so many more of these things where
Yeah.
everything just starts to break down.
Yeah. And I think during that breakdown too, you start seeing all the things you've been missing that are right freaking in front of your face, and they've been there the whole time.
Kind of offensive
It is.
to
Yeah.
yourself, right? You're like, man, I've really been doing this to myself.
Right. Uh-huh.
Oh man.
Well, and then you look at your situation with Dan, your father, where you're going back and you're
Oh, I lost out on an amazing family.
well, it's unfortunate because you genuinely truly believed, even if there was some shakiness there, and it's no fault of your own. It's all you knew growing up as a child. But it's like you have to know in that moment you're talking about, you're talking to him and you're like saying this and that, and that he's just like, gosh, my son just
Yeah.
he's in some fucking cult, man.
No, and
Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. And
I can't say anything to wake him up,
yeah, and they've been such fantastic people because even during that time they knew, and they've been such loving people that they've been waiting on the sidelines this entire time, just hoping for one day that I realize where I'm at, right? And finally it happened. And there they are. And
Amazing.
as soon as I told them that I was leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower, they flew down here. They went to my son's graduation. They went to my younger one's basketball games. He was like his championship. Did all these things that none of my family in the Jehovah's Witnesses ever did once.
Wow.
Yep.
So loving people are such loving people.
Yes, there are people just waiting for their loved ones to wake up and kind of come to this point. I myself had very similar situation where I had cousins that were there for me, and I'm very grateful for them. My sister the same, who by this time is already, recorded a podcast with us, and that's out, and you will have already heard that by now. She's been there for me, and it's been a strained relationship growing up because she was very much out and I was very much in. But the loving people are there to welcome you with open arms, going like, hey, we get it, man. Like,
Yeah.
there's not much we can do or say to kind of help you get out, but now that you're out, we're here for you.
Hmm.
And I feel like Trent and I are very similar. Like, I've told you offline and privately and even on this podcast, like, I'm here for you, my brother. Like, I know, I get it, we get it, we've been through it, and whatever we can do to help you through this process, we're here for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's needed too. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people who are going through this process just kind of bite the bullet and realize you need help because there's so much confusion that goes along with it. You're trying to get your footing. The best way I can explain the waking up process was I was in a tiny, tiny box, the size of a box that could fit a marble. And that box is at the bottom of the ocean. And when my mind finally realized I was in a cult and this is completely wrong, I crawled out of that box, right? And I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much more. But you're still under all this doctrine, all their meaning, all this emotion and different feelings. You feel like it's going to take forever to get to the surface, So it's like this series of steps just to wake up, It's yeah. There is one day something definitely clicks, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a huge processes, to kind of work your way out of the muck. And yeah, I saw it as getting out of the box, swimming up to the surface, right?
Yeah.
So finally, when you break the surface of the water, in my mind, envision the surface of the water as the difference between being in the religion and the deeper you go in the ocean is the deeper obviously you're in the religion, right? But being above the water, you're breaking free of that religion completely, and then you get on land and wander away and never have to go back.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, and the tough thing is
That was really well said.
it's so much work to do that mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And then inevitably too, you know, it's just because you're on land and above the water doesn't mean you're all of a sudden it's going to be easy.
Right, yeah.
Like, there's still a whole other subset of things that you have to unpack and try to figure out. And we've talked it before as well offline. Like, it's very easily something where you can take the wrong step.
Hmm.
And then we talked about the when Jeremy was on. Jeremy came out of a Mormon cult and joined two other cults.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was like, "No way! Why would you do such a thing?" Yeah,
So
uh-huh.
it's like, if there's just something in us where you just have to tread very lightly, be very, very understanding of the footsteps you're taking, with care, because there's just something about us. We would just want to connect with a group, and that group could be very damaging. So that's again why you're kind of in a very unique situation. 'Cause
Yeah, I know. I almost joined like an online group thing or whatever. I was like, "Oh, that kind of
uh,
looks cool." These guys talk about weed and stuff. I'm like, I like talking about weed. Then I'm like, "Nah,
you're all of
no,
a sudden
no,
you're in a
no, you
weed
don't need to
cult.
do
You're in
that."
an MLM. You're selling
Yeah.
weed to other people.
Oh God, yeah. I'm just straight up hippie, long hair. Yeah.
Hey, I want to do Mary
Okay.
Kay with my mom. That's gonna be my group. Is like doing the Mary Kay stuff.
Well, I do want to. I do, and I talked with Jeremy about this. I do want
Dude,
to have him guide me through a psychedelic journey eventually, and I think that would be great to reconnect with him and do that. And then
Uh huh. Oh, I finally got Janelle to try it
ooh.
2 days ago. She loved it. I thought she was gonna wig
But
out
that's
on it,
not
but
the
yeah,
only
she
thing
uh,
that gives me
she liked it.
anxiety these days is thinking about doing some sort of thing like that. So I think that means I have to do it.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
yeah, it's very transformative. And then he's also connecting with a group that does
That
ayahuasca
sounds so.
journeys.
I want
If
to learn about it.
you're familiar with that or down with that,
Does he do that in Mexico or here in the States?
here in the States.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know you could do ayahuasca here in the States.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to basically, ironically, form a church.
Uh huh.
That's the only way they allow it to happen.
Hey, man, as long as they're open and clear about it in the beginning,
That is very ironic,
I'm
though.
okay with it. Yeah, you know,
They're very open and clear.
it is a church, but not really. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that's their way around it in order to kind of make it quote unquote legal. So very, very interesting. But so how has it been through this process with your family? Have they been involved with this process? Yeah. How quickly did you talk with Janelle? Did you hide some stuff from her? Tell me about some of that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially at first. I mean, she knew when we were in Mexico, and just things snapped. She knew something happened. Because I started bringing up things. In fact, one of the dumbest. The subject sounds stupid, but it was kind of profound at the time. It was talking about dinosaurs. I was getting irritated about dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, this is so dumb. And their whole explanation of them, as far as they didn't eat meat, and it's nonsense, right? And so it was a lot of things bugging me, and I'm kind of showing her, and she's kind of thinking like, why are you letting this bother you? Things like this shouldn't bother you about the truth. And like it says, I think in one of the articles in Watchtower, because I was going through everything I could find, and one of the articles in there is like, don't waste your time asking too many questions that don't mean anything, right? And so you're like, well, maybe am I asking too many stupid questions? Does Jehovah really not want me to ask these questions? So some of those things came up, and then I started to find out she had a lot of questions of her own that she never told me about either.
Mm.
And I guess the best thing too that has come out of this is we've done it together.
Yeah.
And how that happens, I don't know. She's always been far more into it than I ever was. Half the time I think I stayed in it for so long was because of her.
Yeah.
I don't blame her in any way, for that. But I think a lot of her was my anchor in the religion itself. Because I know as soon as I found out she had questions, in fact, her big one was about the pants and the beards.
Yeah.
She goes,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily just that. It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back,
Sure.
but she goes, we have been told our entire lives not to wear, girls can't wear pants. You can't have a beard your entire life. And then all of a sudden one day they just change their minds. And I think it makes it so clear over such petty things of how man-made that organization was. And I think that's what really made, snapped her.
Yeah.
So
I also think it's a testament to you and both yours relationship that you're able to create a space for conversation.
oh yeah,
So
Hard to do that as a couple.
it's hard to do that as a couple, and it's hard to do that as a couple in that organization.
oh, by far, right? Yeah.
Unheard of.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so thankful. However, it just so happened to work out where both of us were, I think, at our wits' end, for different reasons too. She had her own tough, upbringing and things of that nature, throughout the truth. In fact, her dad was a perfect example of the touchy touchies, molestations. So, so she had to grow up with one of those stories.
Oh my gosh.
But so I think we've had our hangups, throughout the years, and they just so happen to burst at the same time.
Yeah.
And so we get to kind of go through this journey together. We still have some different viewpoints on things, especially like with apostasy, like with Trinity, with that, with me, I almost embrace the word apostasy,
Which I respect. I totally do. And
and the reason, because I see it as the apostates. The word apostasy really doesn't mean anything, and I think we all know that, right? Look it up, and it's not the monster they made of. And the best example I think of that too is the movie The Village,
Great movie.
right?
yeah,
They created these monsters out there, and those monsters are the apostates,
I love that when it
right?
comes out.
They're going to
Yep.
kill you. They're going to eat you. But in reality, the apostates are some of the nicest people, and they just want to give you information to help you through it all. That's all they do.
I found it's so interesting because I found so many of the movies I loved. I loved them, and I
Same.
didn't realize why
Yeah.
I loved them until
Like-
they got out.
Yeah.
Matrix.
The Village is Matrix is amazing. The
Yeah.
Village is one of my favorite movies, and there was something deep down in me where I constantly was going to these movies and these stories around
Yep.
this sort of control mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And the Village is a great movie. So great bring up.
Yeah.
So you finally get to the point you write this disassociation letter. Now, what some listeners may not know is you can actually just be PMO. You could be physically in, mentally out. You can just live your life. You can, just fake it and, act like you're a witness and maybe move away and just, that way you still keep all your connections with your friends, your family. They don't really know what's going on. Why did you feel the need you had to really take this drastic step of officially writing this letter and leaving the organization?
I think there's several answers to that, but I think the main one is taking control of my life once again. That was a big step for it. Now, making that decision, knowing what the consequences we're going to be, the best. I think you said it, Derek, too. I think you said it takes a lot of courage, and that's really what it is. I mean, to know, even though the Jetmores, we've had a, a soured past, I still grew up around them, for 40 years. So those things, hurt, and I've had to subconsciously. I think I prepared myself in my mind and my heart through a long time. It kind of feeling myself separate not only from the congregations but other friends and family, within the Jehovah's Witnesses on there. So I think somehow subconsciously, and I think it happens to a lot of people too. We kind of slowly disengage, in a way with that, and they would look at it as, oh, you're becoming weak, or whatever. But really, I think it's a wake up in a way,
Yeah.
for some of us, who go that route.
Like the fade.
Yeah, the fade. But so the dissociation, to make my own decision. Yeah, and really, I wanted everybody to be on the same page, and I wanted to be as truthful as possible. I wanted to be so truthful that if it's going to destroy my relationship with you, so be it, because now we don't have to waste time lying anymore. So much time goes into wasting who you are in lying. I don't want to. I've lost 45 years to that shit. No more.
What you start to realize, and you talked about kind of a weight lifting, is that weight is the constant um, mask that you're wearing
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
When you're alone, but more importantly, when you're with other people, even your own spouses, your children, you're constantly not your true authentic self, and it's heavy and it gets exhausting to constantly have to wear that.
Yeah, and I would find to myself, just being at the grocery store, especially because there's a bunch, there's other witnesses that live around here, and I've been to a lot of the congregations, so I know a lot of the people in this area. But walking through the grocery store before I officially disassociated, I was nervous in a way I was never nervous before. I'm like, oh God, what if I see somebody and they kind of know I've fallen out? What do I do? And I'm just like, God, this is nuts. I don't want to live like this forever. My mom was disfellowshipped twice growing up in my late teenage years. And I remember the feeling of that, being at the grocery store in a small town, other witnesses seeing her, and they would turn their carts away and go and walk into a different aisle. And I remember feeling like I wasn't disfellowshipped. I was a good kid, at those times. And you just feel like trash, utter trash, and I was just like, I don't want to carry this on anymore. I want this to be my decision. But a lot of thought went into it, though.
You got a taste of it early on.
You're talking like someone who did this a couple of years ago, man. Honestly.
I think there's been a lot of mental gymnastics through my life with
Yeah.
through that stuff.
Good job.
Yeah.
Have you had any meaningful conversations with your kids through this process?
Yes, yeah, especially my oldest, Owen, 18, super creative kid. He's had struggles through high school with he has dyslexia as well, but to like a level that's beyond words. So he always struggled in, but he has super deep insights, and there's a lot of things he would bring up a little bit younger, just about the JWs. I was like, wow, really? And I guess I never really thought of it that way.
Mm.
But through this time, though, yeah, we sit in the backyard. We talk a lot. We're actually closer now than we were before. Because I started to find he had a girlfriend. I found out, before any of this was going on, and he was sleeping with her, and doing all this stuff. And I remember hearing that, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be super pissed off at you, right? So, but I was like, all right, but I wasn't pissed, and I should have been, but I had to force myself to bring out the Jehovah's Witness side that says this is what needs to happen. And I remember getting really mean, and so I try to talk with him about those times, so that way he knows there's a difference between, I guess, acting those ways and what's actually in my heart as a father. It's like, don't give me, yeah, you don't have to forgive me for that, but let me tell you, sometimes a father or a parent's love is so strong, you're willing to do stupid shit like that because you think it's right.
So where are you at now? Like, do you find yourself? I think you said it before, but where's your spirituality at? Do you believe in God?
I feel
What is that for you?
agnostic. I believe there's a power of some sorts. In what form, I'm not sure. What I'm very interested in the existence after death. So I'm really starting to explore that more scientifically than the spiritual side. I'm just trying to go through. I'm trying to look at my questions or try to find my answers through a critical eye. I'm trying to almost rob it of the magic. I almost want to say, okay, we all things want to be magical, but I want to rob all my ideals of that magic and just look at it for what it is physically here on the planet Earth,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
Yeah. Well, that is a conversation.
No, yeah, because it's hard. Yeah, saying all these things, yeah, talk is cheap, right? But in reality, changing your mind this fast and moving into these things is quite difficult. But it's again, it's me.
Yeah, that is a conversation. Like, I think the hardest thing for people that haven't been in, they don't truly understand that their mindset about their worldview and reality was shaped their whole childhood. And you wake up as an adult and you're given a blank canvas, and it's like, okay, now I kind of have the choice to kind of do these brushstrokes and kind of paint what my new painting's going to be. It's both exciting and there's a little bit of trepidation. It's the unknown. Yeah, because you can truly, wherever your brain wants to take you, you can go down that course. And
Guardrails are important.
guardrails are very important. Grounding is very important. And I think for me personally, we talked about this in the Gork interview. It's really hard, but it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember hearing that too, and I kind of try to take that to heart.
It's because the way we were raised, we knew everything, and we've
Yep,
created this container for every single thing, and we have an answer. And I think I was going to mention this earlier, but it's nice to bring it back now. As children, we're very curious creatures, and they just stamp that out of us.
they really do.
Just society, I think in general, and even more so if you belong to a high control group, the sense of curiosity and wonder is just gone.
Yeah,
And you actually have the ability now, which is awesome, is just to be the most curious person, full of wonder, and it's really awesome.
yeah.
So as we start to kind of close out, there's just a few more thoughts I have and questions, and by all means, Trent, I appreciate you with anything you have too. Where are you at, kind of emotionally? What would you say are some of the kind of emotions that inhabit you, whether it be kind of grief or hope or anger? What kind of day to day inhabits your mind?
There's right now I have a genuine excitement to life,
Love to hear that. Me too.
and I never ever wish to be a teenager again. But unfortunately, my the way to explain this is I feel like I'm 16 again,
I understand.
and it's frightening and exciting at the same time because I mean I know 45. I'd love to say I know who I am, but unfortunately, I think there's a lot more I don't know than I do know.
I totally get it.
More so than I can think back on since I was 16.
I don't think you're alone in that unique perspective.
Well, and like you said though, when you're a child, they stamp you out, right? They stamp you out, and then you become this adult, and all those things that you should have experienced and had figured out already, and you want to do this or you don't want to do that. In fact, because I started therapy, I've been to the girl twice, and she specializes in cults.
Love that.
Yeah, she was one of two that I found, and so far it's been really good. But yeah, she told me that you're going to feel like a teenager, and so be it. I was like, gosh, you're right. This is exactly how that feels.
Good that you're aware that you're in that time period because some people are not. And I went through that time period and I did not realize what was happening. And it causes damage sometimes. So,
Yeah.
like, good on you, man.
Well, that goes back to the possibility that you have a level of awareness you may not even realize. And the more and more you start to kind of tap into some of your innate abilities, you'll start to see more and more like, oh, this shit. I get why I'm so perceptive on certain things. Like,
Hmm.
I think we use the term all the time, like, oh, I'm very self aware.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that shit, and it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like, and yeah, so there's something there maybe to continue to kind of look at. So what, as we kind of look to the future, like what's kind of on your mental docket? Like what do you where are you at?
Oof, man, there's yeah, there's a lot open right now with the family that I have there in Salt Lake. There's a possibility of looking maybe to move there because Janelle and I and my two boys, we've not really had any family, like no family help. The Jetmores, like I say, they're very cultish, and so me being here and not with them, we've never been offered help. I'll put it that way. It's just so
Yeah.
we're looking at maybe how cool would that be to live close to grandparents that care about my children and their grandkids, and then my sister and brother who live there are love my kids to death. To be around that, would be amazing. Now, doing that, again, being a Jehovah's Witness, you grow up, and a lot of us have our own businesses. Well, I have one too. What do I do with that? Right? Do I start over? I don't know. Could I do it? Sure, but now it's the difference between now and being 16
Yeah.
is I have a wife and kids and a mortgage and cars and a business.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah. So it's kind of what do you do with that? So we're going to Salt Lake in 2 weeks for about 5 days, and I think we're going to make some trips up there just to get a feel. I don't want to jump into anything. I'm scared to death of that right now too because making another bad decision. I don't need to add anything on top of what we're going through already. you know.
Sure. Well, we've talked before too. I think it's unfortunate, but there is something about most people move away.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was asking you. Yeah.
It was cleansing.
They really do.
Uh huh.
Trent moved away. I moved away. Uh, it's it's very difficult to. It's just difficult to try to be in the same environment, to be in it, and to try to start fresh. So many people do that. So I totally
Well,
understand.
and then a big.
The ironic,
Oh, as I say, yeah, because we have Ryan and Christy. They live like 6 houses down the street from them.
yeah, some of your good friends who no longer want to talk to you.
Yeah, and then there was another witness family that moved right across. They're smack neighbors to them. And so I've already had like 4 encounters. Since I've written my letter with them, as far as being completely shunned.
Yeah, the shunning is just terrible.
100%. They won't even look at you. It blows my mind. Like I've known you for so long, and you
Yeah.
won't even glance in my direction.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this trip that you're gonna take, gosh, it's the first trip that you're taking as kind of your open self, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, really? Yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
The view your view and lens of the world is gonna be, very different when you take this trip, which I find to be fascinating. I'd love to hear from you on that.
yeah.
So in closing, obviously, really thank you for your vulnerability, for just being very open to chat,
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
and obviously just the courage to just go through what you did, and officially kind of announce and walk away from it and take a stand. It's just incredible, man, and we know it's tough, and you're in it. I mean, so anything we can do to support you, we're here for you. We want to have you on again.
It was great to meet you.
Yes, absolutely. It's great meeting you too, Trinity.
And I think I only have kind of two things closing out. Is there anything you wish more people would understand about what it really feels like to leave?
It's like leaving planet Earth. And you're leaving planet Earth to basically a place you've only read about in the books. And that's what it feels like. It feels like, and the reason why I say planet Earth, because it is that grand. I mean, we create our worlds within our own minds.
Yeah.
And when that world in your mind is completely obliterated, you're just happy to find somewhere to fall back on your feet.
Well said.
Is there anything, maybe like a book, a podcast, a quote, a resource that maybe really helped you through this process that you want to share?
Yes, yeah. One was Surviving Paradise. That was the first podcast I started listening to. Stacy, I believe is his name. He's very sarcastic, through it. But the topics he went over in the beginning were things I never even questioned. I didn't even know there were issues. I didn't even know there were things. You know,
Yeah.
so he was a great one on there. I think a very famous one a lot of people hear about is Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
Uh, So he's been nice too, because I think it's just the way he puts them together. It doesn't seem as biased and as angry as some of the others. It seems to be try to be as informative as most. But your platform here, I think, is amazing. Because like you said, these are conversations of what we're going through and our deep emotions through the whole story, but not just from one side, but yours and Trinity's, and
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the Lloyd thing too is interesting because that's a little controversial. Some people like him, some
Yeah,
people don't.
isn't it? Yeah.
But I know myself, Trinity. A lot of people, some of Lloyd's videos have been very instrumental. So if you take the person out of it and just look at some of those, especially the
Exactly.
early content,
Yeah.
um, it's been very very helpful to kind of unpack some things in a good way.
Th- it- exactly. Yep. Yeah. And then one thing I try to always be mindful of, or constantly remind myself, is don't latch on to another person. Especially if you find someone on YouTube or don't latch on to them as your new governing body.
Yep.
Yep.
Which I could see is very easy to do. Just trying to fill this void, that I have now. It's a massive. there's a big spot open right now, but I just got to make sure I put the healthy stuff in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. You actually seem wise beyond your years at 16 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess
so
I
you
still got some 45 with me. Yeah.
so you I think you're on a good path here. So
Well, thanks to you guys.
again,
Yeah.
thank you for your openness, your honesty, trusting us with this moment so soon after your announcement.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Your voice is so unique in this moment, and we're so thankful that you were able to kind of be on here. And then just for people listening, if this episode resonated with you, someone may be kind of standing on the edge of their own awakening. Please share this episode with them. These stories matter, and the more we hear them, I think the less alone we all are in this process. So thank you so much for everyone listening, and we'll close out for now, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this journey in this era. If you found today's episode valuable, please share it with someone who might need it. Check the podcast description for our socials and other information.
Please consider supporting us at Patreon at patreon.com/culturepod. If you'd like to tell your story, please contact us at cult.ture.pod@gmail.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay free.